Friends, our testimony today comes from Warren Hogan.
Sound check. Sounds working? Sound check? Good. Okay. I'll work my way up there. Okay.
As Warren comes forward, let me share with you some of his background. As you can see, he's not as spry as he was a year ago. Last year, at the age of 85, he found out in the same week that he had both a heart condition that needed repair and an aggressive case of prostate cancer. The procedures and post-medications have left him in a weakened condition, but he says that's not going to stop him from doing the Lord's work. He's known as Top by many of the men here, as Carol's husband by many of us as well. He and Carol have been married for 63 years. They have 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. He was a self-described righteous agnostic until the age of 65. He's been a member of Grace for 20 years, and his favorite apostle, the one whom he identifies with, is Paul. Warren? Where's Warren? Warren, are you all right?
Bang! Bang, bang! Bang! Oh, what happened? What just happened? It's November 1945. I was 9 years old. I'd been sleeping up in the 5-room old farmhouse of my grandparents. And the reason I was there with my mother and my sister, 2 weeks earlier, my mother had her brother pick us up and take it to her parents' house. Why? Because my father stepped over the line. He was a heavy drinker. He was physically abusive to my mother. He was a terrible role model. And so she had had enough. A couple of weeks had gone by. My father came over one night, and in the kitchen, there was my grandmother, my uncle, and my mother, and my father. My father started to get a little out of control, and my grandmother told my mother there was a stairway upstairs. Go upstairs. She wanted to diffuse the situation because it was getting out of hand. And as she obeyed and started up the stairs, my father pulls out a .38, bang! He shoots her, hits her in the side, spins her around, falls to the bottom of the stairs. And then there's 2 more shots and 2 more shots. My uncle and my grandmother both got shot. The noise woke me up. I had no idea what was going on. So I came to the top of the stairs, and I looked down the stairs, and there's my mother at the bottom of the stairs, and she's motioning at me. Go back upstairs. I had no idea what was going on. It was just noise woke me up. And there she was, directing me to go back upstairs. She looked like she was in distress. And of course, if you'd have been shot, you'd have been in distress. But I didn't know that. And then out of the corner of my eye, I can vaguely remember back then, some people looked like they were on the floor. And that was my grandmother and my uncle. So I went back upstairs. And then my father walks over to my mother, and bang, he shoots her again. Although oddly enough, he could have shot her any place. This time he shot her in the leg. So with that, my little 98-pound, 5-foot aunt from upstairs, she comes down, shoots my father out, and he realizes when he's gone out, boy, I have really screwed up. So he goes up to the woods, and what do you think he does? He takes the gun, and he shoots himself. So as the smoke clears, no pun intended, my grandmother and uncle never made the hospital. Fortunately, my mother survived. She lived to be almost 95. She'd been shot. She'd had a heart attack. She was stroke. She was a wonderful woman. She lived her life for me and my younger sister. Beautiful woman. And my father, unbelievably, he lays in the woods all night, and he didn't do it right the first time. He didn't die. So he crawls back up to the road and to the hospital, and guess where we went after that? People, young kids would ask me, what's your father do? I say he makes license plates, because that's what they did in the New Jersey penal system. Anyway, it was a very traumatic time, and things were really screwed up. I can remember having nightmares and all this stuff. Eventually, I got back to school, and I'm in the 3rd grade. Now I'm 9 years old. And while I'm in there, I'm a messed up kid. And some little 3rd grade girl looks me right in the eye. And she said, "You're always moping around and asking for sympathy." I guess I was. Can you imagine that? A 3rd grade girl being perceptive enough to do that? Well, that was unnerving. But over the next few days, I started to process that and had to acknowledge my life was a mess. I'm not going anyplace. I don't want to be like my father. He's a terrible role model. So I decided, now at 9, I'm going to become a somebody instead of a nobody rotting away in jail. So how are you going to become a somebody? You're going to have to excel. People are going to say, isn't he a great kid? What did he just accomplish? Fortunately, I must have got it from my mother, the DNA. But honesty and integrity got built in my system, and that probably kept me out of jail. And then I thought about, what about this God and Jesus stuff? What kind of a God would allow such a tragedy as this to occur in your life? Forget about that God and Jesus stuff. There's only one person in the world I can depend on. Who do you think that was? It was me. I'm going to depend on me. I'm not going to depend on anybody, and I'm going to excel. I'm going to be the greatest. People are going to give me accolades. I did fantastic. Positive. Did great in school. High school year, played all the sports. Graduated in the top 10 kids out of over 400. Senior year, I'm president of the National Honor Society and co-captain of the football team. Am I now starting to earn merit badges? Am I proving to the world I'm a somebody? Better believe it. It's working. And I went on to college, and I did real well. I ended up #1 student out of the metallurgical engineers. Everything is working good. And really, a very important thing, I've been going with Carol for several years, and we got married. That was probably a very positive thing in my life. And we started having children. Susan, our first child, was born. So at this point in time, I'm taking a look at myself. It was all about winning, pride, ego. And like Paul, I was very legalistic. I did believe in right and wrong. But it was man's law. Of course, we know God's law is a little stronger than that. But I could do those other things because I long stayed in man's law. And so all things were working well. So time went by, and now I'm into the business world. I am a business gladiator. I am really suited for what's coming up with me. Started out as a metallurgist and then worked 20 years for Texas Instruments in way up northeast Attleboro, Massachusetts. And I started at the bottom end of inside sales, and in 20 years, I had gotten promoted and promoted because I worked hard and hard and hard, and I was now the big chief of a 1,000-man division. $100 million. And my whole Boy Scout thing is filling up pride and ego. I am the example of what a successful person can do, taking themselves out of the gutter. It was really, really good. Then I had something happen. It was in November or December of 2000. And I was leaving Seattle, where my oldest son, Christopher, was. Carol and I were there for Christmas with the grandkids. And as I was leaving, he gave me a little book called More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. And if you ever known about him, he was a hardcore atheist. When he went to college, he got challenged by other Christians, and he went out and spent a lot of time to prove he was right. Guess what happened? He found out he was wrong. So he had switched from being an atheist to a very well-known global evangelist today. So anyway, I didn't have anything better to do. I'm on this airplane. It's going to take 3.5 hours to get back from Seattle to get back to Dallas. So I read this dumb little stupid book. But man, I started reading some stuff in there I never heard about. There was no reason to hear about them, right? Then I became curious. I'm still a very left brain engineering type. Give me some facts, some figures, and I want to process them. So the more I read that stuff, my theory of evolution and Darwinism started to be challenged. So I spent a whole year going to talk to a lot of people. Why did they become Christians? What was it all about? And then finally, a week after 9/11, which was also an emotionally charged period, I decided I'm on the wrong team. This God and this Jesus stuff probably makes a lot of sense. But I was still in probability. I'll think like an engineer. But I said, oh, it's time to switch. I'm going to buy into this God and Jesus stuff, and I'm going to let Jesus be my Savior. What did I not say? Anybody? What about Lord? Lord, you mean beat boss? Oh, wait a minute now. I've been running my life since I was 9 years old. I'm going to give up? I can't give up that much. You got to be crazy. So maybe if I died the next day and went to heaven, I don't know. But in any event, I then started to do what I needed to do as a new baby Christian. I had to start learning all about this Christian stuff. I had a guy step forward, 24 weeks, one-on-one discipleship, and got into all kinds of training programs. And that's how we became members of this church. So I'm making progress along there, but I'm still running the company, and Carol's still running me. So we had a good balance between what was going on there. And time went by, and then it was back in that 2001 period. For those of you around, the economy took a really big hit, particularly in telecommunications and semiconductor. And that's where a lot of stuff was going on. And then I found myself on a Friday, April 4th, 2003, with what I perceived to be a disastrous problem, and I didn't know how to fix it. From the time I was 9 years old, I always found the solution and fixed it. This time, I didn't know what to do. I can remember standing, literally, in the middle of my office when I realized I don't know what to do. And I physically started to collapse. I couldn't think straight. And I'm sweating profusely. And my stomach is going upside down. I would have made a great advertisement for Prozac and Rolaids. I was a really mess. Right, a couple of days go by, and I'm in here with Susan and Carol in this sanctuary, and it happens to be Communion Sunday. And I mean, I'm a mess. I'm screwed up. And when I put the bread in my mouth, I finally gave it up. I surrendered at last. And then I had a miraculous experience. I started going to tingling, and then a radiation. And then peace, rest. I went from the worst of my life to the best of my life in a very short period of time. And then 2 hours after that, I'm in the car, and I'm now getting brain waves. God's telling me, here's how you got to resolve this problem. And oh, by the way, I got greater things for you than just your company and what you're doing. Get prepared. Then it was amazing. In the next couple of months after that, I was flooded with new contacts, and I was ready now to go to work. God wasn't going to use me before. He couldn't use me. So here's just a few examples of what he's done with me then. I've got a long list, but I'll name a few of them. The first one was within our own church here. Remember Keith Davis back in around 2005, whatever, started a men's ministry, and we started doing the Top Gun program, which I had learned over at Entry Bible Fellowship. And so we put that system in, and over a number of years, we had 90 men go through that program, learning the fundamentals of applied Christianity for men's life. Then we got into prison ministries. I've been on 27 different prison ministry events. I've talked to hundreds of inmates. And during that period of time, 62 of them have made professions of grace, professions of commitment for Christ. Now, I don't know in the long term, that's between them and God, whether it's stuck in all of that. But I was out there planting a lot of seeds. And then I got into a thing, I call it my Mac ministry. Have any of you people ever gone to McDonald's? Yeah, you've been there. Well, I started using McDonald's like an office. I go in there, get something to eat, sit down. You know, you sit in there long enough, you're going to meet some really interesting people. And over these years, I've met some really interesting people, and I've learned to be sensitive to their needs, either providing them food, give them a ride, praying with them, dealing with some of their issues. And then I got into another small little ministry called Besuchen, which in German means to witness. And out of that comes, each month we present a little card like this with a gospel tract on it, and there's a whole bunch of them back in the sanctuary. So I hope you will take advantage of helping yourself to as many of them. They're great starters when you want to open up a conversation. Now, moving along, a couple of quick things. A couple of months ago, I was back in where? McDonald's. And then I was curious. How many people are alive at 85, and how many are alive at 90 and above? Well, I found out, and do some translation. Hey, guys, only 0.5% of the 330 million people are males, 85 and over, and only 0.2% are 90 and over. Wow. I processed that in another week, said, my goodness, I only got about a 40% chance of making 90. And time goes really quick. I mean, now I'm 86, on my way to 87. My time is running out. And so I sat there and I said, if time's running out, are there still some things I want to do, need to do, should do? And I got my tablet out. I started to write. And I had a whole bunch of stuff. And then I bunched them up. This is family-related stuff. This is business-related stuff. And here's a whole bunch of kingdom things. And then I said, this is my 4-year plan. This is what the things I need, should do. And so now at 86, 6 going to 87, I got a well-defined plan, what I'm going to do. And then 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with Tracy, and we're at Panera, and I was waiting for her. I was kind of thinking through a little bit about what I was going to say today. And then it occurred to me, I've always mostly been a very positive person, but because of all of this health issue stuff and my weaknesses, I had become depressed again. And I thought to myself, what have you been doing? I started people asking me how you're doing. Instead of saying either good, great, excellent, fantastic, I would say crappy. Unbelievable. What an attitude. And just then I thought about it. That little third grade girl said, I'm back doing this again. Get over it, Hogan. You may never get your energy back. Make the most of what you got left in your life with what you have. And I got about a big boost of energy before you came in. You notice my energy level was up a little bit that day. So as I wrap this thing up, let me leave you a few things to think about. First of all, we live in a very sinful and dangerous world today. And things can change radically, very quickly. And then for any of you who are not sure you're going to go to heaven for whatever reason, I invite you to see me, Pastor Tracy, or anybody, discuss it, and let's find out what's going on. And if you really are a true believer, are you using your spiritual gifts to do the things God wants you to do? Whether it's clothing the poor or feeding them, giving them shelter, telling people about Christ, and all the other things are doing. Are you doing those things? And as I think now, one more thing. If any of you are feeling sorry for yourself and are out of your control, what? Get over it. Make the most of what you got left. So I got a 4-year plan. I know what my focus is. And as we wrap this thing up, my focus is on my 4-year plan and the helping people get prepared for eternity. So I challenge each and every one of you, including those who may be watching from wherever, what do you want to do? Better yet, what should you do, and will you do it with whatever life you have still to go? Amen.